For wire reinforced hoses and high pressure applications, heavy duty hose clamps are required. In this video we compare the common nut and bolt clamp to the high torque worm drive clamp by JCS and look at how the clamps are tested. The mandrel test. A simple test to measure how much input torque a hose clamp can handle. As expected, due to their design, in this test the nut and bolt clamp can withstand a higher input force. However, the JCS clamp broke well over its recommended working torque, which is a much higher torque than any installer would produce using normal tools to fit the clamp. Grip test. The grip test measures how efficient a clamp is at turning input torque into clamping force. The test apparatus uses two semicircular mandrels. The clamping force is calculated by measuring how much the mandrels are squeezed together by the clamp. To compare the clamps, the input torque is increased by 1 Nm increments and the clamping force is recorded. This graph shows the average results taken from testing 3 clamps of each type. As you can see, the JCS clamp shown by the blue line provides a much higher clamping force than the equivalent nut and bolt clamps. Importantly, at a nut and bolt working torque of 20 Nm, it produces less clamping force than the high torque at the lower working torque of 15 Nm. A common misconception with heavy duty clamps is a wider band is better. This is not the case. With a wider band, the clamping force is spread over a larger area and therefore the actual pressure on the hose is considerably less, meaning it will leak at a lower fluid pressure. Pressure test. By far the most important test, the pressure test shows us how well a clamp seals on a hose, the job that it actually does. The apparatus used is as specified in the British standard testing procedures for hose clips. The hose is pushed onto a solid, smooth mandrel and fluid pumped under pressure into the hose between the two clamps. On this test, both clamps were fitted at their working torque, 15 Nm for high torque and 20 Nm for the nut and bolt. The nut and bolt clamp failed and leaked 8 bar. It did not reseal until the pressure dropped to 4 bar, a very poor result for a supposedly heavy duty clamp. A second high torque clamp was fitted and the test repeated. A pressure of 21 bar was achieved before the hose failed and the test had to be concluded with no signs of leakage. The result of this pressure test is typical of all nut and bolt clamps JCS have tested. The suspected reason for the poor performance is in the design. When fitted, there is a large gap either side of the bridge under the nut and bolt, allowing for fluid to leak past. Whereas the high torque has much smaller gaps and, as discovered in earlier tests, applies a much higher clamping force, allowing it to withstand a much higher fluid pressure. The most common argument for choosing nut and bolt clamps is they look stronger and simply that customers do not believe a worm drive clamp is up to the job. JCS have conducted the test with different size clamps and different types of hoses, and the high torque clamp has consistently outperformed the more elaborately designed rival. All JCS high torque clamps are Lloyd's registered type approved for marine and offshore use, and are the only clamps with specific approval for use in wet diesel exhaust systems. Lloyd's approved hoses are a requirement on most vessels and marine equipment, however they are often incorrectly fitted with unapproved clamps. With a large adjustment range, high torque clamps offer a great benefit to the stockist and customer. Stock holding costs and space can be massively reduced as most clamps feature a 30mm adjustment range compared to the small 3 to 5mm range of nut and bolt clamps, making them considerably cheaper than the bigger but less effective nut and bolt clamps, especially on larger diameter applications. All JCS clamps use band material with a fully rounded edge. This offers the best protection from cutting and damaging the hose. Competitors' clamps with a turned or raised band edge only moves the sharp point and still risk cutting the hose. In summary, although the nut and bolt clamps look stronger, the high torque clamp from JCS offers a higher clamping force, greater hose sealing ability at higher pressures, reduced stocking costs, competitive pricing, unrivaled hose protection and Lloyd's register type approval.